Herzlich willkommen zu einer neuen Ausgabe von Crop FM. Der Titel der heutigen Sendung ist The State of UFOlogy und mein Telefongast ist Jaime Maussan. Wo, wann und wie auch immer Sie uns hören. Schön, dass Sie dabei sind, und wer jetzt dabei ist, der kann auch an dieser Sendung quasi mitmachen mit Cropcom. Erreichbar über die Website von CropFM, cropfm.mur.at, und dann auf Cropcom klicken. Sehe diesen Chat hier live ein und gebe die Fragen gerne an den Telefongast weiter. Der CropFM Newsletter erscheint alle 2 Wochen und ist so eine Art Erinnerung auf die kommende Sendung mit einer kurzen Beschreibung des Inhalts. Anmelden kann man sich dazu ebenfalls auf der Website von CropFM, cropfm.mur.at, und dann in der News-Sektion gibt es zum Beispiel einen Link drauf. Wenn man uns einfach nur mailen möchte, so wie das immer mehr Menschen tun, und heute werde ich auch anfangen, ein paar dieser Mails vielleicht vorzulesen, die irgendwie auch zum Thema passen, dann jedenfalls sehr gerne. Wir freuen uns über alle möglichen Geschichten oder Anregungen oder sonstiges. Mails an cropfm@mur.at oder vom Link von der Startseite aus. Ja, wer es also leid ist, dass wir Raketen in den Himmel schicken, die mit 60 Jahre alter Technologie oder 70 Jahre alter Technologie angetrieben werden, dann hat hier vielleicht Roger Sawyer etwas Neues. Roger Sawyer has developed an engine with no moving parts that he believes can replace rockets and make trains, planes and automobiles obsolete. The end of wings and wheels is how he puts it. It's a bold claim. Das ist er für wahr. Aber er ist nicht der Einzige, der an solchen Dingen forscht, und angeblich gibt es ja auch in den großen Luftfahrtgesellschaften Zweige, die sich mit sehr alternativen Antrieben wie Antigravitation etc. auseinandersetzen. Wann das Ganze denn wirklich spruchreif wird, das heißt, wir damit fliegen können, das ist natürlich eine ganz andere Frage. Spannend auch die Frage, wo denn die Anregungen dafür herkamen. Aber eine andere wundersame Geschichte findet sich auf BBC.com. Fish egg miracle needs cracking. Biologists at the University of Manchester want help in cracking their miracle discovery of 3 fish inside a sealed egg. The group found a duck egg in a small pond on a field trip to French Alps and noticed that something moving inside it. When they cracked open the shell, 3 live minnows, glaube ich heißt das, were inside. 3 kleine Fischleins. Man sieht auch das Foto auf der Website, auf diesem Artikel auf BBC erschienen. Und wie die in ein völlig unbeschädigtes Ei kommen und dort offenbar reiften, ist tatsächlich eine sehr interessante Frage. Ein Thema, auf das wir sicher auch heute während der Sendung eingehen werden, ist The Mystery Object that delayed the shuttle landing, so ein Artikel auf CNN. Mystery Object delays shuttle landing. The question is, what is it? Is it something benign or is it something more critical we should pay attention to? Said Wayne Hale, Space Shuttle Program Manager. We want to make sure we're safe to land before we commit to rather incredible journey through the Earth's atmosphere. Mission Control spotted the baffling object, the size of which was not immediately determined, with a video camera in the shuttle's cargo bay. The object may have come out of the cargo bay early Tuesday, but officials were not certain. Weiter in diesem Artikel dann, the object floated near the shuttle in the same orbit for a while, slipping farther and farther away until it just a dark speck in the NASA video beamed down to Earth. A few minutes after NASA made the midday decision to delay the landing, Atlantis astronaut Dan Burbank photographed what appeared to be another small object floating away from the spacecraft. But NASA spokesman James Hartsfield said, they're not the same thing. 2 Objekte gleich, die man da entdeckt hat, und Jaime Maussan hat mir, als wir kurz diese Woche am Telefon sprachen, gesagt, sie haben da schon sehr interessante Dinge herausgefunden, als sie danach forschten, und ich bin schon sehr gespannt. Und die Landung war offenbar nicht ganz so ohne, denn als dann die Astronauten endlich am Boden war, ist eine von ihnen kollabiert. Astronaut collapses during ceremony. An astronaut from the Space Shuttle Atlantis collapsed twice Friday during a welcome home ceremony. A wobbly return that officials attributed to the adjustments from 12 days at zero gravity. Heidemarie Stephenson Piper, ich sollte wirklich alle Namen vorlesen, left the hangar at Ellington Field through a side door, but was not taken to a hospital. Officials said she was doing fine. Das heißt, die Dame ist einfach zweimal zusammengebrochen und irgendwann hat man sie dann einfach bei einer Seitentür hinaus begleitet, wurde nicht ins Krankenhaus gebracht, aber irgendwie scheint sie doch ziemlich aufgeregt zu sein gewesen, oder was auch immer ihnen da auf dem Rückflug passiert ist, das hat sie ziemlich mitgenommen. Jaime Maussan kommt ja aus Mexico City und rätselhafte Schriftzeichen hat man nun in Mexiko entdeckt. Ein internationales Forscherteam hat in Mexiko die bislang ältesten Schriftzeichen der neuen Welt gefunden. Die Archäologen um Carmen Rodriguez Martinez und Ponciano Ortiz Ceballos vom Centro del Instituto Nacional Antropológica e Historia in Mexiko entdeckten die etwa 3000 Jahre alten Glyphen auf einem Steinblock, der per Zufall bei Straßenbauarbeiten ans Licht gekommen war. Ja, die Geschichte ist sehr spannend und viele dieser Mythen, von denen wir uns erzählen, könnten ja auch einen wahren Hintergrund haben, und tja, das hängt wohl mit dem heutigen Thema irgendwie zusammen, denke ich. Ja, und dann hat man noch einen Planeten gefunden, einen ganzen Planeten, der schwimmen würde, wenn man ihn in ein entsprechend großes Bassin legen würde. Puffy Cork Planet would float on water. A newly discovered planet has 1/4 the density of water and would float if placed in a bathtub large enough to hold it. Ja, was es nicht alles gibt da draußen. Planeten, Sternensysteme, Billionen von Galaxien. Man weiß es einfach nicht, aber hier und da sehen wir seltsame Dinge am Himmel. Tja. Ja, wie schon angekündigt, werde ich jetzt verstärkt auch immer wieder E-Mails vorlesen, wenn denn spannende kommen, und zu dieser Sendung sind noch einige gekommen. Eines davon, das eine sehr, sehr interessante Sichtung beschreibt, lese ich vielleicht noch am Ende vor. Am Anfang vielleicht ein Mail, das ich von Philipp erhalten habe. Lieber Tarek, ich habe kurz in die neueste Sendung reingehört. Die Frage der Zusammenhänge von UFOs und Militär kommt immer wieder auf. Aber es sollte doch mittlerweile klar sein, was mit den Teslas und Schaubergers gemacht wurde. Deren Erfindungen wurden gepachtet. Es ist also nie ganz sicher, was für ein UFO da gerade rumfliegt. Sind es außerirdische oder eigene Testfahrten? Zudem ist das British Empire stark Illuminaten belastet. Wer weiß, was für Verbindungen die haben. Ja, natürlich. Viele dieser Sichtungen könnten durchaus ganz normalen terrestrischen Ursprungs haben und erklärbar sein in einer gewissen Weise, nur sind es halt geheime Projekte. Aber andererseits gibt es auch sehr viele Sichtungen, die nicht erklärbar sind, denn sie sind einfach zu seltsam. Und auch Erfahrungen, die Menschen so machen, die passen da einfach nicht ins Bild. Aber von einigen werden wir heute sprechen. Und ja, ich werde jetzt versuchen, Jaime Maussan am Telefon zu erreichen und werde in der Zwischenzeit ein nettes Liedchen spielen. Und ja, wir hören uns dann gleich wieder in ein paar Minuten, sobald ich Jaime Maussan in Mexico City am Telefon habe. Ja, ich glaube, ich habe Jaime Maussan nun am Telefon. Es hat ein bisschen gedauert. Hello, Mr. Maussan, can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you well.
Very good. The lady who works at the office, she just put the phone down and I was waiting for someone to answer it, so I was a bit stressed now.
Yes.
Well, very glad to have you on my show. Thank you for taking the time. There's a lot of interest in this subject, of course, and especially on my show where we do a lot of those subjects. And I haven't done a show on UFOs exclusively for quite a couple of years now, mainly because it's very difficult to get guests, to be honest, especially in the German-speaking world. But
yes.
you are, if you can put it that way, one of the big players in this field. As I learned, there's a lot of material that you put out. You do a lot of radio and television shows.
Yes.
And what got you started with this subject? I mean, you studied...
I have been a journalist, an investigative journalist for the Mexican television for the last 35 years. And I was involved in a show called 60 Minutes, as the one that exists in the U.S. We run that show for 17 years. I became reporter, director, and anchor of that show for a long time. I was involved just in journalistic assignments. But then, back in 1991, we had a total solar eclipse, the second longest in the century, a very important one in the history of Mexico. This is an eclipse that happens once every 676 years. And as I said, it's very important. During that eclipse, we had so many sightings around our country, and we had so many videos that I became very interested in investigating this subject because the videos were really good. And then we looked for some history in all books, all text from the old civilizations, and we found one with the Mayans, especially around the Dresden Codex, which is, I believe, in Germany, by the way. And in this codex, it's an astronomical codex, and you have let's say, a table of eclipses. And in there, we found a prophecy describing this eclipse of July 11, 1991. And they said there that it was going to be the time of the meeting with the masters of the stars. It was going to be the beginning of a new era, an era that was going to be built over the ashes from the last. It was going to be the end of the Jaguar Nights. And all of that made me really curious about the possibility of this becoming real. And at the same time, I realized how important was the video to document this phenomenon, to create evidences. And then I suggested the people in Mexico that they should take a camera and follow these objects to produce the evidences. And I received so many incredible videos that I started to present in congresses around the world. And this created a new era for the phenomenon, the era of the videotape. And since then, many other countries have followed, and we have so many now videos and evidences, and that is why I became interested, and probably that is why my work has been known around the world. I have an advantage. I am a journalist in television. I have a television show every Sunday night, and I present the videos that the people are recording, and that creates, let's say, a virtuoso circle where you ask for the videos, they give you the videos, you present the videos in television, and then more and more come. And that is why this is working so well. As a matter of fact, I was invited by the Air Force at Peru in December last year because they wanted to know how I had convinced the Mexican people to be watching the skies and record all these videos, because something similar is happening in Peru, but they don't have the response from the people as we do here in Mexico. And then I suggested that they should create a television program, promoting this activity, to record. And they had elections in April or May, and I'm waiting because they wanted to follow this possibility in the near future. But that is the way, and that's why I became involved, and that's why my work has been successful, my friend Terry.
Yeah. And of course you're a radio and television professional, and so you bring out a lot of this material, and so you're really doing pioneer work, as I understand it, by also motivating people to lend their material to you. So I almost get the impression that you build up a network in these years where you get more and more stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's what we did. We motivate people to do this, because the only way to do it is you have to make a skywatch permanently. And we have some people right now that we are speaking. There are people watching the skies of Mexico, especially Mexico City, but even in other cities around the country, but especially here in Mexico City.
Yeah.
And any day, any moment, they would come with videos. For example, we had an incredible video of a big sphere almost collapsing or crashing into an airplane August the 22nd. And we presented that in television, and we asked the authorities in Mexico to recognize this phenomenon, because this phenomenon somehow, for some reason, it's dangerous, especially for airplanes. We had an accident in July 28, 1994, when the landing gear of an airplane, a jet, an MD-88 from Aeromexico, was completely destroyed, his landing gear, and they had to make an emergency landing. And this happened after the people reported this sphere flying very dangerously close to the airplanes, very close to the airport. And we know that was the case. And we know this could happen at any moment. And because of that, there are people always recording whatever happens in the skies of Mexico.
Because you mentioned incidents where airplanes and civil airplanes were involved, do you also get radar data? I mean, because that's even more compelling.
Yes. We're in close connection with the control of the airport. Control Mexico is called, and they give us information every time they have these sightings on the radar. And this has happened many times. Sometimes there are many objects that are observed through the radar, and sometimes they receive reports directly from the pilots. They consider they have received thousands of reports in the last 10 years, but I mean thousands and thousands. It's becoming common in Mexico.
Is there a reason?
That this is a new reality here. There are so many people now believing in this because they see it by themselves. They have the luck to have a sighting, or they record it, or they see something that is undisputable in television, and that's why there are so many more believers in Mexico, no? For example, you remember the video that I received from the Air Force in 2004, when the military airplane recorded something like 11 or 15 or 16 probably lights in the sky, and these were recorded with an infrared camera. And this is a sighting that still is considered one of the best and the best documented ever, and that proves that now in Mexico the authorities are open to discuss this phenomenon, and it's very different than what it happens in many countries in Europe and the United States and Canada. And I hope that this new position of the Mexican government is going to motivate others to do the same.
Yeah, and I want to get back to this subject later on, but first, because also we have a live chat here and people can ask questions, and someone asked the question, why Mexico? Why is it that you get more of those reports because you actually specifically ask for them and build up this network? Or could it be that there are more UFO incidents in Mexico? What do you think? Than in other places?
What I tell you is an hypothesis because we don't have communication with these creatures. But I can tell you this: in Mexico, the Air Force don't follow, don't chase, don't attack these objects. They are somehow very comfortable here. On February 14, the year 2000, we have a big, huge UFO hovering over Mexico City from, let's say, 2 o'clock in the morning until 3:30 in the morning, an hour and a half. And I mean low, 30 meters in altitude. And the object was at least 15 to 20 meters in diameter. And this was observed by the police all around the city. As you see, they are not in danger when they do that. That's one of the reasons, I believe. Another reason is that I feel that when this subject attracts the attention of people, then the phenomenon increases. Exactly like what is happening now in England with the crop formations. I believe this happens there because it has attracted the attention of people. People go there and they respond. It's a way to create communication. And in Mexico, they come, they are recorded, and I think they know the images are presented in the Mexican television, and that is why I think the phenomenon continues coming back and building up, as a matter of fact, because we had so many sightings in the last 2 years.
Yes, I have
another reason is the energy. We have so many mountains. We have so many volcanoes in here, active volcanoes. That has to be another reason. And probably all these reasons together are why in Mexico we are having all these sightings. And probably one more reason is that we had in Mexico, in the old times, the best astronomers. The Mexican cultures were used and based on watching the stars and the movements on the stars and the cycles of the stars, the eclipses, the transit of Venus, and whatever they could record through the observation. Probably that's another reason, because if you remember well, Stonehenge is an astronomical monument, and also we have this Serpent Mound in Ohio in the U.S. It's just around these two places where you have the crop formations in England and in the United States. I don't think it's a coincidence. I think it's happening exactly where we have these old astronomers or all this old knowledge about the stars. In England, it's not just around Stonehenge, it's Avebury. In Avebury, as you remember, are stone circles. And we have Silbury Hill, too, that is an old pyramid built, artificially built. That's where it happens, really, in England. And I don't think it's a coincidence again. I think it's related to these old cultures and this old knowledge. Probably all of these four reasons together are why in Mexico we had so much.
Yeah, and of course we met this year in Wiltshire, and that's actually why we're having this conversation tonight. And
yes.
I put a photo up on the website today in this incredible crop circle that I'm sure you remember, this six-folded geometry in the huge circle that was about 200 meters wide. where you and your whole group were there. I mean, you traveled to Wiltshire, that must have been 20 or 30 people.
Yeah, that was a dimensional membrane. It's a dimensional door. We had...
you mean the crop circle?
In England, we had 5 or 6 different representations of wormholes, portholes, dimensional doors, whatever you want to call it, black holes, white holes. All that is, I think, related to travel in space, to create magnetic spaces, tunnels, to be able to travel. And that's why I believe this information was given to us this year. And yes, we met there, and I believe was one of the most important formations this year. And at the end, we had Lamat, this star from the Mayans, from the Solkin, the sacred calendar, and I believe it's a very important formation because it's related to the formation last year. If you remember,
yeah, I do.
The formation last year, we had an eclipse in the middle, and we have the number 0 in the astrology of the Maya, and the number 0, the day 0, is the 20th of May, because that day we have the alienation of the Pleiades, the Sun, and in this case, the 20th of May 2012, the Moon and the Earth. And Lamat, which is the last day represented in the Mayan Dresden Codex, is the last day of this era. Coincidentally, Lamat is going to be the 19th of May 2012. And we believe now there is a relation there of dates. They are trying to tell us something around that date. Yes, the Mayan calendar finished in December. Some other thing is going to finish in January. But I think these intelligences are telling us that the era, not the calendar, the era is going to finish and start around the 20th of May 2012, when the Pleiades are aligned to the Sun and to the Earth. And also they are going to be aligned to the center of our galaxy. And for that reason, it's a very important astronomical date. And we believe all this information from last year and this year is related to that, Terry.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I mean, you mentioned a lot of video material that people send to you and that you use in your work. Is some of this also available online for people who want to have a look at it now or when hearing this show?
Well, some of it, sometimes we put some of these videos in my site. It's OVNIS, O-V like Victor, N-I-S. OVNIS is like UFOs, but in Spanish, ovnis.tv. That's where you can find some of the recent videos or the significant videos that we are recording constantly.
Okay, so
but also, for example, in the UFO International Congress in Laughlin, Nevada, you can get the exposition, the presentations that I had there. You just have to link to their website, the UFO International Congress.com, and I believe you can get some of the material that I'm presenting. And right now, I have a big surprise because, as I told you, we were able to connect through a parabolic to the transponder of the NASA, and we were able to record so much information, so much images around UFOs close to the Atlantis in the last 2 weeks. It's amazing, all the material we were able to obtain, and it's also amazing that NASA hasn't spoken about this. We all know that they said that there was an object close to the Atlantis, and because of that they had to postpone for 24 hours the landing of the Atlantis. But they never mentioned that this object was 20 kilometers away. And for that reason, the object the little object, as they said, was bigger than the Atlantis. And that has to be considered something else.
Unbelievable.
And they never presented the real video. We have the real video in color, and it's just amazing. They just put a white mask around this little dot in the middle, and that's all we saw in the television, in the news. But it's nothing compared to the real stuff. And we have that, and we will be able to release that to the public through different congresses where I have been invited. Then I promise you many more surprises, Terry, in the near future, because the images prove undeniably that the Atlantis was surrounded by many objects in different occasions, that they knew about it, that they never talked about it, and now it's very clear that they are obstructing information that they don't want to release or discuss with the public, Terry.
Okay, that's amazing. I mean, you say that the object was about 15 kilometers away from the spacecraft?
Yes.
And how do you know that? I mean, what data?
Because we calculate the frame of the video. We calculated if this was a wide open frame or if it was a close-up. And in both cases, it had to be, because you can observe so much of the Earth, had to be very far. And we consider it's a rough approach, had to be between 15 and 20 kilometers, probably more than 20, but let's say 15 if you like. If you try to watch an object, let's say an airplane, that is 15 kilometers away from you, you won't be able to do it. And it's a big one, a jumbo jet, let's say. You don't see it. Then if you see it, as they did, because they did it with their own eyes, before they did it with the camera, that had to be a very big object. And when you see the real shot, you can clearly see that the object is chasing the Atlantis, is following the Atlantis, because it moves a very long time just behind it and just following it. You have to see the images to understand exactly what I mean with this, but I can tell you it's very impressive. I think the NASA tried to deny the information there, saying that this was a bag. Can you believe it? A plastic bag. They also said was something from the same Atlantis. Well, whatever it was flying 23,000 kilometers an hour. And there is not an object of that size that fell from the Atlantis. There is no one. No, it's impossible that this to be ice, even by the color, is completely black. Then it's impossible that this is ice or something explainable, because you can clearly see has a direction and intention, this object. And whenever this information is released, I believe it's going to be very clear for many that the NASA tried to block all this information to the public, or trying to diminish the importance of this. Because for me, it's a clear message that something is going to happen soon. I believe they are saying the time has come, at least in the space, for you to continue doing your activities with no permission. You have to agree to certain conditions. There are universal laws, and you have to respect these universal laws. And as long as you don't do it, we won't allow you, or we will pressure you to stop doing that. Why can I tell you this? Because I have privileged information that I received from Philip Corso, a man who died in 1998, and he left a manuscript in Italy. And as you remember, I gave a conference along Corrado Balducci, the speaker from the Vatican, around this subject. and I had the honor to be the only investigator in the world who has been able to give a presentation with this man, official man from the Vatican. And in that occasion, I received this manuscript that Corso left in before he died in 98 in Italy. And they gave me this manuscript, which is going to be published in Mexico in Spanish very soon. And he released information there saying that the missions to the moon stopped after the objects follow very closely the Apollo missions. As you remember, Edgar Mitchell.
Buzz Aldrin, Buzz Aldrin said that
he
recently...
just released that information, but Corso left it in 1998 saying that all the missions were followed and chased by UFOs. Then I think, and Corso is also saying that Phobos 2 and Mars Observer were lost in Mars because of the intervention of these creatures, because these missions had military purposes, because Phobos 2 was going to be crashed on the moon Phobos in Mars, and for that reason, they didn't allow this to happen. And now that I saw what I saw from Atlantis, and also the information and images we have from the missions STS-121 from July this year, and STS-114 from August 2005, both by the Discovery. In both occasions, we got very important images again. It's like the timing has changed in the space, and we're going to see so much more in the future. I'm not saying that these intelligences are going to attack us or do something bad to us. I don't believe that. But I believe they will increase as they did this time. For example, not allowing for 24 hours the Atlantis to land. That's a clear message, my friend. And I think the time is coming, it's approaching, where we will see some demonstrations of these intelligences to the human beings. I believe this is the biggest news of not just of the century, but of the history of human beings, and it's just about to happen. I believe we all be witnesses of this change of an era, exactly as I found in the old codices from the Mayas.
Yeah, and of course, I mean, fascinating stuff. Buzz Aldrin, he definitely said what you just mentioned. He said that they were followed by a UFO, and they didn't want to, they kind of circumvent the description when they phoned back home to Houston, because they were scared that they might get ordered back because, they were talking of little green men. But then later on, when Buzz Aldrin was on Coast to Coast with, I think, George Norrie, he, however, denied ever saying that, which surprised me.
My friend, I have the video.
I know, I've seen it. I've seen it on Google Video.
He cannot deny himself.
Yeah,
no way.
It's interesting that he does. I mean, he's a hero. There's no discussion about this.
Said,
but
it was not right what you did, boss. You have to retract yourself. But he can't. Because he said it.
Yes, he
very
said
clearly. And he was not the only one. There were other people by NASA talking about this incident and saying that, yes, it happened. And it happened. There is no question. It happened. And now, when you have this with the Atlantis, you have to reconsider. The only reason they let everybody know is because the object didn't allow them to land. That is the reason we know about the incident. But it's not, remember me, it's not going to be the only case. There are going to be more cases in the future, and it's going to be more and more and more difficult to deny. And they will be forced by this intelligence to recognize that there is something out there that they don't understand. And that is why it's so important what happened last week with the Atlantis, Terry. We have to remember that day September 19th as a very historical day because it's the first time NASA recognized there is an unidentified flying object in the space, officially, openly, in television, in the news.
Well, there was
After
one...
they say it was something, a trash or something from the... They never prove anything. Then we have to understand what happened last week as the beginning of a new approach by this intelligence that is just around us.
Yeah, I mean, there was they did talk about another object. I think in the recent past, it was spotted outside of the space station of the International Space Station.
In June. The VPA, the agency, had declarations from the Russian scientists, and they said that there was an object, huge object, flying very close to the International Space Station, 2.6 kilometers away. And we believe that was the reason the discovery was sent to the International Space Station in such a hurry. Because,
it was.
Remember,
yes.
Yes?
Yeah, no, you're right, it was a hurry, because they had very big troubles while in the start phase, I mean, in the days and weeks before.
They had to do it, because they didn't know if the astronauts in the space station were in danger. The Russians considered, the Russian scientists considered this evacuation, emergency evacuation, if this object got any nearer to the space station. We have the images of the object, by the way. We have the video from this object just hovering there, just staying there stationary, close to the International Space Station. And that is also a very important and significant evidence that proves that, yes, there is a new approach out there, and this is going to continue. Remember me? It's going to continue happening. It happened in July with this object near the space station, and it happened now in September with the Atlantis.
Yeah, and it's not the first time that NASA TV by accident transmits a mysterious object.
No,
STS-47, I think.
If you want to do the same thing, listen what you have to do. You have to find the NASA transponder. I don't have the technical information right now. You have to find the NASA transponder with a parabolic. And then you have to get all the images from there, and you have to record continuously this information.
Yeah.
Because by law, NASA is obligated to present this to the public. But they are not obligated to talk about it or to repeat the images or the information. Then if this happens 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning or whatever at any time, you won't realize what happened, and they won't tell you about it. And that's why we decided, since the mission in July, the 121 STS-121, to record the whole mission. And that's what we did, and we did this time. I have to tell you also that on September the 9th, the Atlantis, on the first night in the space, got images, infrared images, for 5 very, very large objects, by the way, very near the Mexican Republic. It's a coincidence because it happens very near where the military recorded the images in 2004. And it's a coincidence. But again, from that moment we knew that this mission was being chased and followed by these objects. And now we have all the information to prove what we are saying as real.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. And you also mentioned, of course, Signore Balducci and the church's involvement in this whole thing is also quite interesting. I mean, you always hear talks about they now just built in Northern Europe. They built a huge observation station where they can look at the stars, and people ask themselves, what are they looking at? I mean, What do you think is the church's involvement in this, if any?
Can you repeat your question?
The church. I mean,
I hear you very, very low, my friend.
You also before you mentioned Signore Balducci from Italy.
Yes.
And what do you think is the involvement of the church or general of religion in this picture?
Monsignor Balducci in the 90s, for some reason, he was considered the official exorcist of the Vatican. He was the man who handled the difficult subjects for the church. In 1984, 95, 96, he was invited repeatedly by the RAI, the television of Italy, to speak about UFOs, because they were receiving these incredible videos from Mexico, by the way. Yeah. And he talked about that, and he considered the events in Mexico real. And something very interesting happened inside the Vatican. When the Pope, John Paul II, gave orders to his people to tell him whenever Balducci was on television talking about UFOs, because he wanted to see Balducci. That was like an order to the people around the Pope to consider this subject important. For that reason, Balducci continued to go into television and talk openly, and he gave many interviews to different reporters around the world. We had 3 different interviews with him, one made by Michael Heisman from Germany, the second made by my collaborator Daniel Munoz, and the third one by myself. And in all these, he gave orders to the Mexican priest to speak openly about this subject, to recognize this as real, to recognize this not as evil, but more like angels or something good instead of bad. And that helped a lot in Mexico to relax this tension between the church and the UFOs. And I think it happened in many other countries around the world. I was invited by the University, Catholic University of Chile in Santiago, and I talked about this. And when I did, they were very scared. They stopped the interview. They sent me to my hotel, and 2 hours later they went for me. They took me back, and they made an interview for 2 hours, because they called the Vatican, and the Vatican agreed to open this information, to speak about it, because they were interested, because the Pope was interested. And I think it's something very important. Balducci told me that the new Pope, I met with Balducci last year in Washington, in an international congress in Washington, D.C. And when he went back, because this happened when the new Pope was taking his post, exactly at the same time, and when he went back, he received a message from the Pope saying that he wanted to speak with him because he was also interested in this subject. Unfortunately, for some reason, Balducci told me, he hasn't been able to see the Pope yet. I don't know, at least in March, he hadn't had that chance. And we hope very soon he will, because Balducci has become the link between the church and this phenomenon. And I hope, because he's a very old man, he's 84, something like that, 86, 85, we hope that he can consolidate this before something happens to it. I hope nothing for a long time, my friend, because he is so important. But I hope that he is able to consolidate this for the future, because, as you know, the Catholic Church is very important, and their opinion is very important, but at least until now, they haven't attacked the phenomenon. They have continued the same policy, which is open, of recognition, And I hope when the transition finish between this Pope and the next, the church will be in a very different situation and position to continue the investigation around this subject, Terry.
A lot of people on in the chat are asking about the footage that you took or recorded from the Atlantis mission. Is that available online somewhere, or will you make it available?
Not yet. Not yet. It's going to be released very soon. And I will, if you continue in contact with me, I will let you know where and how it's going to be released, because this is very touchy subject, cannot be released just openly. It has to be done in a correct frame, because as you know, many people could use this to try to distort whatever happens. Then we have to be sure, and we will do it very, very soon, my friend Terry. I can send you some images to you, but just to yourself, and you can present to your friends or your audience in private if they really want to see this. But you have to understand, and they have to understand, that this is very important.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I would be very interested if you could send me those, although I would be very tempted, but of course I wouldn't put them online. But as soon, I would love to stay in touch with you, and especially on this subject.
Very soon, when the time comes, they will be online, okay?
Yes, great. And yeah. So on jeffrenzi.com website, on renzi.com, Jeff Renzi's website, there was a quite interesting article related to the 2004 sightings. And the question is, why does Mexico seem to be at the forefront of this disclosure? I cite from the article, the UFO phenomenon in Mexico has been recognized as a fact in an historic and unprecedented decision taken by the Mexican Department of Defense under his Secretary of Defense, General Clemente Vega Garcia, commander of all armed forces in this country. So your country, Mexico, has taken quite bold steps in the recent years towards disclosure. But what is the state of ufology? What is the state of disclosure? What is going on here? I mean, it seems to be stuck. I mean, nothing really happens. We get sightings after sightings. Many people see those. But
remember, I have a television program.
Yeah.
1 hour every Sunday night in a prime time. And that allows me to continue investigating, presenting, and receiving information from the Mexican public. And that is very important.
But what do officials...
The media has to participate with this.
Yeah, but what do officials say?
If you have these kind of shows in your country, the situation would be very, very different. But I think in Mexico there is so much material. You cannot imagine the recent videos. They are very beautiful in quality. In July the 30th, we had a UFO. I mean, a beautiful image flying over Mexico City. There is no question about that. Then in Mexico, it's not stopped. This is continuous. And there are many reports around Mexico. Many newspapers report this. I know in the world, it seems that nothing really important is happening, but it is. What is happening in England and the messages we're receiving there, it's very important. And I think that when the people in your country, Austria, start watching the skies, one of these days they will find something there. They will record it. And if the television presents this, you will create a circle. And this could help to increase the sightings. I mean, it's my hypothesis around how to handle these subjects and how to promote more communications or presence of these beings in the earth.
Of course, but unfortunately in Austria we don't have such open television shows as obviously you have in Mexico, but let's hope maybe this changes, who knows. But what I'm especially interested about is what is your take on the official powers that be, and Now, as I said, your country took a quite bold step because the military, as I understand it, actually confirmed those sightings and actually was the source of the material.
Yes.
So is it is it the case that in your country the military and the state, one could say, has acknowledged the existence of UFOs?
Absolutely, yes. Of course.
That's amazing.
They are not trying to confront others, but they say, we record this, we don't know what it is, and they gave it to me since I am being the man who has been receiving and presenting these videos from so many people. For that reason, yes, it's a way to acknowledge that what we are doing is real, and that it should be presented to the Mexican public in an open way. What I did was to make an international press conference, and everybody came because I presented the video the night before in the national news, in the most important newscast in Mexico. And next morning I had this presentation, and for that reason I was able to reach all the world with this information. And I hope, the reason I did it was to motivate other military to do the same. And it happened in Brazil, as you know. A year later in Brazil, in 2005, the military opened all their files
exactly.
Around UFOs, and they recognized the phenomenon as real. As I told you in the first part of this interview, I was invited by the military, generals and everybody in Peru in December last year, because they wanted to know more about this subject, and they were so impressed when they saw all the information we have, that they wanted to reproduce the same model in Peru that we have here in Mexico. And I hope that is going to happen soon, because I know there are many, many sightings in Peru, and we could obtain very good evidence for the future if we work in there. And then somehow many military around the world received the message that this is real, there is nothing to hide, this is not dangerous, this is just, for me, it's normal. This is an intelligent universe, my friend. The only reason science doesn't accept that this is possible is because we cannot do it. We cannot go to other planets because they are too far away. And they think that is the same for everybody.
Yeah.
But probably these intelligences found a way to come here, probably, as I said before, through dimensional doors. And I believe we have to recognize this as a possibility, because the human being is going to do it in the future.
Yeah, obviously you think that this phenomena is the origin of this phenomena is visitors from outer space coming around here and looking after whatever we are to them. I
believe they came here in big numbers after we detonate our atomic bomb in 1945. That's when they discovered us. Probably they had been here forever, but they came. As you remember, Roswell, where we had this accident, was very near Los Alamos, because they were interested in the atomic investigation we were doing and the development. Because that's a threshold into the new, into developing the technology to go to where they come from. They know we were going to be there sooner or later. And they had to come here because we need to learn to respect others outside. And we don't do that. We go to Mars and we do whatever we want to. We went to our moon and we do whatever we want to, and it's fine. But at the same time, we have to learn to respect the new science is going to be exopolitics.
Yeah.
We have to develop the exopolitics, and the exopolitics is going to be more important than the politics on Earth. And that is why probably the politicians don't want to accept this yet, because they will be under the exopolitics, because that is going to really make our laws and our systems to action, or to, I mean, it's difficult for me to explain, but
Yeah.
the exopolitics is going to be the most important.
Yes, it will be.
The most important laws are going to come from there.
Yeah,
And we're going to have to change the way we behave. We cannot continue polluting this world the way we do it. We cannot continue changing the climate as we are doing it, killing the species, extinguishing species in the air, plants, in the seas. We cannot continue doing so many stupid things, and we are not ready to do that. But we're going to have to do it fast, because I think the time is ending.
So, obviously, I mean, something is happening here, and of course, a lot of people, let's consider, well, fine, we're going to be visited. We are visited. There are a lot of aspects to this whole phenomena. There is the abduction phenomenon, there is cattle mutilation, very strange aspects.
But
Do you think...
You realize everything is investigation.
Yes,
the abductions are done to investigate us, or to experiment with us.
But do you think that this phenomena...
They need these animals to investigate with them.
Do you think that this phenomenon...
If they want to be really bad, they could do it. They could finish with us in a second, my friend.
So do you think that this phenomena is benevolent?
Because they don't want to.
Do you think that this phenomena is benevolent? Or is it... I mean, that's the big question here. What are we dealing with?
Can you repeat your question?
Do you think that the phenomena is benevolent?
Yes. I don't think it's malevolent or evil. I think the phenomenon is curious, and I think the phenomenon wants us to accept the universal laws, to respect life, even inside our own planet, even with our own kin, with human beings, because it's, I mean, it has to be a shame in the universe that in the earth there are so many poor and so little rich, and that's unacceptable, I believe. And I think they want to motivate these changes in Earth to make us be part of this intelligent universe.
Well, we're coming to the end of our show. One thing that, of course, everyone wants to know is, well, apart from the evidence, there's enough evidence, I think. There's enough evidence that we can all say, well, there's something going on. And we can also safely assume that a lot of people know what's going on. A lot of agencies might, or at least have a much better picture than we are. Do you think that in the near future, or in the next 10 years or so, there will be something like official disclosure? And I mean, just, someone official, the President of the United States, going out there saying, well, we're being visited.
Let me tell you what I think is going to happen.
Yes.
Especially after I saw what I saw with the Atlantis. I think the acceptance of this phenomenon is going to come from the space. It's going to come from events that are going to be happening around our adventures in the space, and that sooner or later, and it's going to be more sooner than later, they will have to accept that there is something going on. What if the next shuttle is not allowed to land for 2 or 3 days because an object now is not chasing it just for a day, but for more time? What if the object is closer and closer to the shuttle, whatever, Discovery or Atlantis?
Yeah.
Will they then accept that there is something they don't know what it is, and they will, and discontinue, or this International Space Station, when you have something so close, so big, that they have to accept that? I think that's my hypothesis. The revelation is going to come through that possibility.
Well, okay, I guess we'll all be here to see it, and you think that that's going to be rather sooner than later, meaning in the...
Yes, I think these intelligences are going to force... I don't think it's going to be a voluntary release. It's going to be forced, but without danger. Because if this happens inside the air, it could become violent, you know? And if this happens on the space, in this very subtle way, probably they will have just to accept this without any danger for us.
Yeah. Well, it's an absolutely fascinating story, and you bring in a lot of very fascinating aspects to this whole thing, and that was a very fascinating show. I mean, that's all I can say.
Thank you very much, my friend.
And I hope we will continue that we will repeat that in the future. And I'm also very curious about what we will find out about Space Shuttle Atlantis, about this recent incident. So I hope you will.
Okay.
Yes.
No problem, my friend.
Okay. Well,
I'll be in touch with you, and whenever you need me, we can arrange another interview in 2, 3, 5, 6 months, and to let the people of your country know what is going on with this investigation.
yes, I mean, to people of my country, this is very unusual. Someone who is in television and who is in radio speaking out so openly as you do. This is unthinkable in my country, I have to say. I mean, my show maybe is one of the few exceptions to the rule, but you know, national television, you don't really get good information on UFOs, unfortunately.
Well, fortunately, you are doing it, and we are here to help you.
All right.
Continue spreading this information, the real information, to the people of your country.
Yeah, which I think I think it's a very important information. Thank you very much for being my guest, and I'm looking forward to have you on again, and I wish you all the best for your work.
Okay, my friend.
Okay.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Ja, das war Jaime Maussan, live aus Mexico City, nehme ich an, war der Herr. Und ja, was soll man sagen? Es ist fast schon absurdes Theater, was da teilweise abläuft. Also auf der einen Seite wirklich bestdokumentierte Sicht. Ich meine, wie oft. Ich frage mich manchmal, Leute, die dann fragen, ja, wo sind die Beweise? Ich meine, wie viele Beweise wollen sie noch sehen? Ich meine, man kann, wenn man was nicht glauben will, alles anzweifeln. Ja? Und die Tatsache, dass es unidentifizierte fliegende Objekte in unserem Luftraum gibt, ist bewiesen. Punkt. Wir müssen uns weiter bewegen zur Frage, was ist die Quelle dieser Sichtungen? Das ist die Frage, sonst gibt's keine andere mehr, denke ich. Und die Quelle kann alles Mögliche sein, und es ist wahrscheinlich ein großes Spektrum an Dingen, wie ich immer sage. Es sind nicht nur, wenn das überhaupt ein Anteil ist, was ich eigentlich schon glaube, Besucher, unter Anführungszeichen. Es sind alle möglichen, auch psychischen Phänomene, es sind unbekannte Wetterphänomene, all das ist es auch, aber einige der Sichtungen sind durch nichts erklärbar, weder durch geheime Experimente des Militärs noch durch sonstige Wetterphänomene oder sonst was. Und ein Beispiel, ich habe es am Anfang der Sendung angekündigt, ging da letztens in meine Inbox ein sehr spannendes Mail von Dirk aus dem Himalaya, hat er mir das geschrieben. Dirk wird übrigens jetzt also er wohnt dort, er wohnte im Himalaya, also nicht im Himalaya, sondern in Asien mit seiner Freundin, und die sind gerade im Begriff, nach Deutschland zurückzuziehen. Und ich habe eigentlich versucht, ihn heute on air zu bringen, aber das ist sich nicht ganz ausgegangen. Vielleicht geht es in einer der nächsten Sendungen dann aus. Jedenfalls, das Erlebnis, das er da hatte, das möchte ich jetzt doch kurz vorlesen. Liebes Crop FM Team,
Vor ein paar Jahren hatte ich ein außergewöhnliches Erlebnis. Mir begegneten 3 riesige Raumschiffe, die zu einem verschmolzen und aus dem lauter kleine UFOs mit hunderten engelartigen Wesen hervorkamen. Dann wurde ich Zeuge einer Reinigungsaktion der Erde dieser Wesen. Dies alles passierte am helllichten Tag bzw. Morgen. Diese Schiffe sind auch jene, die die Kornkreise machen. Ich habe bis jetzt noch niemanden gefunden, der ein ähnliches Erlebnis hatte, und bis jetzt habe ich auch nur in einem sehr kleinen Kreis darüber erzählt. Ich bin kein Heiliger, kein Spinner und ich will kein Geld verdienen. Aber es ist an der Zeit, diese Erfahrungen weiterzugeben, da sie an alle Menschen, die mit auf die neue Erde gehen werden, wichtig sein könnte. Diese wunderbaren Lichtkräfte sind da, um uns abzuholen. Ja, nämlich dann, wenn der Drangsal zu groß wird. Siehe Offenbarung des Johannes, Entrückung. Mein Erlebnis soll allen Mut machen, dass wir nicht alleine sind. Okay, die Schlüsse, die der Mann zieht, sind natürlich ganz ihm überlassen. Also die Erfahrung, die er da gemacht hat, also wenn er sie nun wirklich gemacht hat, aber ich meine, ich habe keinen Grund, ihm nicht zu glauben, denn es ist nicht das erste Mal, dass ich von solch völlig wahnsinnigen Sichtungen höre. Und auch nicht das erste Mal, dass ich habe auch schon persönlich Leute getroffen, die wirklich unglaubliche Sichtungen hatten. Und wenn man sich anhört, wie die aussehen, dann ist auch völlig klar, dass sie damit jetzt nicht, oder sehr viele, 90% würde ich sagen, das nie jemandem wirklich erzählen, außer vielleicht ihren engsten Freunden. Denn, ich meine, es sind Leute schon für weniger in die Klapsmühle gewandert, sage ich mal. Und diese Erlebnisse, die sie haben, und dieser Herr namens, also Dirk hatte, ich werde übrigens also nie Nachnamen oder irgendwas nennen, aber wie gesagt, vielleicht den Vornamen und den Ort, also man möchte nicht, dass ich das tue, wenn ich das Mail vorlese. Aber diese Sichtung, die er hatte, klingt wahnsinnig, aber wenn man in Betracht zieht, dass das kein Einzelfall ist, dass es sehr, sehr viele Menschen gibt, die derartige Dinge sehen und noch viel Verrückteres, dann muss man sich irgendwann einmal fragen, was ist dahinter? Oder vielleicht verschwenden wir einfach nur unsere Zeit. Ich meine, im Endeffekt wissen tue ich es nicht, aber ich kann nur nach meinem Gefühl gehen, glaube ich. Und es ist, glaube ich, keine Zeitverschwendung. Ich glaube, dass es ein recht wichtiges Thema ist. Auf die eine oder andere Art. Und wir wissen noch viel zu wenig drüber. Wir wissen, glaube ich, noch gar nichts in Wirklichkeit. Und wir ergehen uns in Spekulationen, denn wir haben es zu tun mit etwas, das wahrscheinlich schon viel älter ist als wir und einfach, ich meine, man stellt sich vor, eine relativ junge Kultur trifft auf eine sehr, sehr, sehr alte. Der jungen Kultur muss das doch sehr seltsam vorkommen, wie diese alte Kultur auftritt, ihre Bräuche etc. Und wenn diese alte Kultur Millionen von Jahren alt ist, und ich meine, unser Sonnensystem ist, glaube ich, 5 Milliarden Jahre alt, die Galaxie 8 oder 10, ich weiß nicht genau die Zahlen, aber es ist um die Größenordnungen geht, ja, daran sieht man schon. Also uns gibt es seit ein paar hunderttausend Jahren und das da draußen seit Milliarden von Jahren. Und es ist riesengroß, etc., etc. Ja. Jedenfalls im Chat war es heute relativ ruhig. Ich weiß, er meint, in My Humble Opinion hat er gar nichts Wesentliches erzählt. Naja, kommt davon, was man für wesentlich befindet. Wird mal Zeit, dass Nicola zur Show eingeladen wird, sagt der Aaron. Ja, Nicola war schon öfter da und hat über dieses Thema gesprochen. Also, ja. Zeitverschwendung, gehen wir alle heim. Warum denn das? Naja. Wie gesagt, im Endeffekt muss jeder selber seine Antworten finden. Man kann ja keine Antworten geben auf seiner Sendung. Soll man auch nicht. Man kann nur Meinungen weitergeben. Und das hoffe ich, habe ich getan heute. Ja,
Mir hat es großen Spaß gemacht und das nächste Mal Crop FM gibt es wie immer in 2 Wochen. Und zwar am 13. Oktober, Freitag, der 13. Oktober. Aaron sagt, das war Sarkasmus, na gut. Ja, genau. Let's go home. Let's go to sleep. Nein, tun wir nicht. Ich zumindest nicht. Noch nicht. Freitag, der 13. Oktober, jedenfalls die nächste Sendung. Das ist übrigens der Tag, glaube ich, an dem ein französischer König den Tempelrittern beinahe völlig den Chaos machte. Und an diesem spannenden Datum wird Martin Winter zu Gast sein, und zwar wird es um Hypnose gehen. Martin Winter ist ein sehr interessanter Mann. Er heilt unter anderem übers Radio Leute von allen möglichen Süchten oder Schluckauf und solchen Dingen. Vielleicht machen wir das live, das weiß ich noch nicht ganz genau. Also ich bin mir nicht ganz sicher, ob ich wirklich möchte, dass jemand bei mir Leute hypnotisiert, aber muss ich mich noch ein bisschen damit auseinandersetzen. Jedenfalls wird es in das Thema Hypnose / Bewusstsein beziehungsweise Realität an und für sich gehen, denke ich mal. Aber das ist eine dieser Sendungen, wo ich vorher gar nicht genau wissen möchte, wo es hingeht, denn die kann in alle möglichen Richtungen gehen. Und ja, ich freue mich schon drauf und bedanke mich bei allen für Ihr Interesse und fürs Zuhören. Bis zum nächsten Mal. Macht es gut.